Hi, and welcome back to the Pro Day Sports Podcast. I'm Chris Dory, and today I'm really excited. I'm going to speak about the different types of muscle fibers found in the human body. Talk a little bit about the history of it, how we came about, and what it means for you as an athlete, and potentially, can you change the types of muscle fibers to benefit your particular athletic competition? These are great questions. And so let's jump right into looking at muscle fiber types. And of course, what are they? What am I talking about? In your skeletal muscle tissue, there are two major types of metabolic processes that are taking place. And so we kind of distinguish them into two areas. You might have heard of words such as red and white muscle fibers or fast twitch and slow twitch muscle fibers. The words have kind of changed through the years as we develop our understanding of what's actually taking place. But these particular muscle fibers can help you accomplish the different athletic goals that you have in mind as an athlete. So, for example, if you're an endurance athlete, your workout styles are much different than a power lifter or a football player or any other type of athletic event, a tennis player. All of these are activating different types of muscle fibers in the skeletal muscle tissue. Now, if we just zoom out for just a second and you really think about it, when you go to work out or do any type of physical movement, you're activating multiple types of muscle. The cardiac muscle tissue is very different from the skeletal muscle tissue. The skeletal muscle tissue is very different from the smooth muscle that's found in your digestive tract and a few other locations. But the main thing is that you voluntarily control skeletal muscle tissue when you go to do something athletic. And it's important that you develop hand-eye coordination, as they say, and really that's activating the nervous system all the ways down to the muscle tissue fibers, and being able to sustain that when you want to, okay, and at the level and intensity that you want to. So with that, I'll mention a little bit about the history of it. We really started to get into these studies in the 50s and 60s, and at that particular time, we didn't have a whole lot of technology to kind of help us. We did a lot of animal studies, and in fact, a lot of animal studies are still conducted today. We generally focus on mice and other things that aren't as big a deal to use in the research setting. There have been cat studies. There's been a lot of interesting things, but essentially, if you want to see the muscle fiber type, you have to get a picture of it, or you have to get it under a microscope. You got to do something with it. And in order to do that, you kind of have to do a cross-section of the muscle tissue. Well, if you're still alive, that's just not a very good thing. So a lot of these studies were conducted originally, and we would euthanize the organism and then cross-section the muscle tissue that we were concerned with. And what we started to discover is, if you think of a steak and you cross the fibers on a steak, it's essentially what you're looking at. You're looking at skeletal muscle tissue, and you'll notice that there's these little segments between each one of them, and this is a grouping of skeletal muscle fibers. Okay, and there are different types. So as we kind of moved along through the years, now we can do histochemical stains and electron microscopy, and there's a lot of things that we can use to kind of help us understand it. We have a technique where we can actually take small biopsies of humans whenever we do human studies, and that really has helped us to kind of understand what's going on. Avian species or bird species, a lot of other things have different types of muscle fibers. For humans, we've really focused it or narrowed it down into two major groups, the fast twitch and the slow twitch. And we also call those type 1 for slow twitch and type 2 for fast twitch. And we break it down even further from there. Type 2 generally has what we call type 2A, and then we also have what we call type 2X. You might also see it called type 2B. Again, it's changed significantly in the literature over the years as our understanding of it has increased. Now, inside of each one of these skeletal muscle cells, you have proteins, and the collective group of proteins we have found have actually been different. And so some studies are actually coming out that we might have anywhere around 11 different types of muscle fibers inside the human skeletal muscle system. So for now, we're going to focus on the three major types, and those really are it. They're just very small variations is all that I'm talking about. But understanding is important. It's helping us to kind of get where we need to. And I'll just give you a real basic comparison of these. The NASM website has some fantastic material, and it matches very well with the literature. But if you want to run a marathon, distance runner, you're swimming, cycling, something, again, that's an endurance type situation, you're going to activate the slow twitch fibers or type 1 fibers. You're really going to rely on those. They're not very big. They don't produce a lot of what we call force production. So, if you're swimming or running, you're not going to need to apply as much force as someone that's a power lifter, okay? The contractive properties of the muscle fiber are different. You don't need it. You have a lot of mitochondria. So if you remember back to your bio classes, you thought you were going to get rid of it. But the mitochondria are important. They produce ATP, which is an energy molecule needed for muscle contraction. You're going to have a lot of other types of proteins available in these muscle fibers. The oxidative capacity is very high. And what that means is that you can breathe in oxygen and you can run it through the process of converting it into ATP and utilizing it in muscle contraction. This is why an endurance athlete can run for a very long time, because they're able to get enough oxygen in their body, run through the metabolic processes, and output contraction in the muscle fibers continually. So we call them slow twitch. They don't have to go super fast, but they need to be consistent over a long period of time. Okay, and then the next two that we have are broken down into the fast twitch type. And you have your fast twitch type A, and again, type 2X, so 2A and 2X for the fast twitch. There's not a whole lot of difference between these. They're very subtle. These muscle fibers are a lot larger. So when you go to the gym and you actually lift, usually you're activating more of the type 2 muscle fibers. And as you continue to do that, hypertrophy takes over. These muscle fibers increase in size a lot easier. You have much higher force production. So again, think of, I'm going to go in the gym and do a squat. You're going to need to activate something in the skeletal muscle tissue that can apply a lot of force. Okay, so when you contract the muscle fibers, you are producing much more force than if you go out and go jogging down the road. You just don't need it. So the body is very fine-tuned in that there are two types of muscle fibers that it can activate. The contraction speed, type 2X is quicker than type 2A. So, that's important if you're playing a sport and you have to react quickly. Agility, speed. These types of fibers are going to play into that much more than your slow twitch fibers or type 1. When we start to look at the mitochondria and a few other things, you don't have as many mitochondria as you do in the slow twitch, and your oxidative capacity is much lower. So what does that mean? That just means that as you're breathing, you can't really keep up with the metabolism taking place in the fast twitch fibers. So what that means is it's going to run out of juice quicker, so to speak, than the slow twitch. This is why you can't sprint. If you're running a 100-yard dash and you're hitting 10 seconds, 11 seconds, 12 seconds, you can't do that for in a very extended period of time. You're going to get tired. Those slow twitch, fast twitch fibers run out of juice a lot faster. Okay, so again, as you start to look at these types of fibers, we also have discovered that in different locations of the body, we find them in varying amounts. So, for example, if you think of the arm flexors, and those are the muscles that kind of sit on the palm side of the arm versus the calf muscles. Okay, or we could look at the quads. These different locations have different variations of fast and slow twitch fibers. We've seen different variations in the jaw. So for humans, we've started to notice, okay, not only are there different amounts in different locations of the body, okay, but this kind of plays into the function of a lot of those muscle tissues and what they generally tend to do. So the next question that kind of leads us is, can we change these muscle fiber types? So as you go into the gym, as you go to the track, as you go to tennis court, whatever your sport that you're doing, you are wanting to train like you perform. So if you're an endurance athlete, you want to activate slow twitch fibers. That means you need to go jog / run 3+ miles. You need to get out there and get your body acclimated to that particular sport. If you are a football player, you need to train like a football player, and you need to be doing high intensity sprints. You need to be doing something that's going to mimic what you're going to see during game day. You need to be activating fast twitch fibers, and as you begin to do this and you activate certain fibers over and over and over again, the body begins to adapt. There's a lot of concern in the literature on whether we produce new muscle fibers or they actually change. So for example, from your type 1 fiber and now you transition to a type 2, there's a lot of kind of controversy on what we think exactly happens there. But what we do know is that as you train in a sport, and you can kind of think about whatever you've done in the past, as you train, you get better at that sport. And you start thinking about it consciously less and less, and you are starting to subconsciously develop a neural pathway from the brain to the muscle tissue, and you're also starting to develop a specific network of activating the right muscle fibers that you need for that particular sport. And there's a lot of other things that are happening at the metabolic and chemical level, but as you, again, begin to train, you will activate the correct number of muscle fibers. You go to the gym and you lift weights, you're sore, you let your body recover. You come back, you lift weights, you're sore, let your body recover. You're activating those muscle fibers, the ones that you want to activate, and you're eventually getting to a point where you can sustain the workout much easier than you could in the beginning. You have less fatigue. And again, a lot of this has to do with the neural pathway. We're not talking about that in this discussion, but you start activating the correct muscle fiber types, and as you transition through your workouts, you will get a better ability to work with the right muscle fibers. Now, it's very interesting. I always kind of laugh. Especially guys are the worst, but we want to see who's the quickest, fastest, tallest, whatever. But if you take an endurance athlete and put them in the gym to complete a 1-rep max on bench press, they're certainly not going to, most likely in most cases, outdo themselves compared to somebody who's been doing that consistently. And it doesn't mean that they're not in shape. It just means they have activated the muscle fiber types for their particular sport, and switching over to high resistance, heavy weight activity doesn't use the correct muscle fibers, so their body's thrown out of whack. Same thing if you took a power lifter and you put them in a 5K cross country race. They are not going to perform well. Again, this doesn't mean that either of these athletes are out of shape. What it means is they are finely tuned to their particular sport, and they have activated the correct muscle fiber pathway for what they're needing to do. So again, type 1, slow twitch, type 2, fast twitch, these are the major muscle types, muscle fiber types that we use in skeletal muscle tissue. We're learning a lot more about it, and hopefully this helps you understand a little bit as you begin to move into your workout journey, or continue to learn about the art of lifting weights, training, running, and becoming better as an individual and as an athlete. Again, I'm Chris Story, and this is Pro Day Sports. Thanks so much.